Hello friends, welcome again to the EPG Pathshala program in linguistics. I am K.V. Subbarao, formerly from the University of Delhi and University of Hyderabad. Today we are going to talk about Dravidian and the syntactic typology of Dravidian languages. This is divided into three parts. Today in this unit we will discuss part 1. As we know that there are 4 major language families in the subcontinent, namely Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, Tibeto-Burman and Austroasiatic. Austroasiatic is subdivided, as we know, into Mon Khmer and Munda. So today what we will be doing is what are the major typological features of Dravidian. After a brief introduction, like I did just now, we will talk about word order universals in Dravidian languages. What is the evidence in support of the notion of India as a linguistic area? Then we will discuss part of India as a linguistic area evidence in this unit and the rest in the next unit. As we know, except Khasi from the Mon Khmer, all the Khasi and other languages of that group, all the languages in India are verb final. So what are the verb final features of Dravidian languages? We are going to see them. As you know that in verb final languages, the auxiliary occurs to the right of the main verb. Then indirect object precedes the direct object in the unmarked word order, as in sentence 5. As Indian languages are free word order languages, so the indirect object and direct object order is not fixed. The direct object may precede the indirect object, or the direct object may occur in the initial position of the sentence for focusing. Then let us come to the time and place adverbs. In verb final languages, the time adverb occurs first, followed by the place adverb. In non-verb final languages, the place adverb occurs first and then the time adverb. So that means, as you can see, there is a mirror image relationship between the time adverbs and the place adverbs. Another very interesting and fascinating feature of the time adverbs and place adverbs is that they occur in descending order. What do we mean by descending order? The superordinate time or place part occurs first, then the subordinate, then the less subordinate and then the less subordinate. So for example, let us take Telugu, a Dravidian language spoken in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So sentence number 9 there, it shows you first you have the year 2010 low, then you have January, then a month, then you have the 15th date, then you have night, a smaller chunk, then you have 8 o'clock, another smaller chunk. That means you are going from the year to the month and month to day and then day to part of the day and the time. What happens in a language like French or English? They are non-verb final languages. So the mirror image relationship would neatly function here. At 8 o'clock at night on the 15th of January in the year 2000. Here we are in the ascending order where the smaller chunk comes first, then the bigger chunk and the much bigger chunk and much bigger chunk. Then let us look at place adverbs. Let us take the Malayalam sentence in 10. Here let us start with the English sentence. At the steps of the main door of God's temple in Tirupati. Okay. Now steps is the smaller chunk. Main door is a bigger chunk. God's temple is a much bigger chunk. Tirupati is a much bigger chunk. So from subordinate you are going to superordinate. What happens in Malayalam or Telugu or Tamil or Kannada or any other final language? We have Tirupati Le, Swami, Kshetradi, etc. Then Gopuram is the main door, then you go down at the step, Padi. These are some of the features of word order. What this shows is that word order plays a very important role in ordering the constituents of a sentence. The next part of our story concerns the notion of India as a linguistic area. What do we mean by that? There are certain features that the languages of India, irrespective of the family that they belong to, they share. Okay? This is the kind of notion that was proposed without labeling it by Sunita Kumar Chatterjee in 1926 and Bernard Bloch in roughly around that time. But it was Professor Emino in 1956 who gave the label that there is the label of India as a linguistic area, and in that he has placed compound verbs, conjunctive verbs, conjunctive participles, reduplication, echo words, etc., etc. We are going to look at all these aspects from the point of view of Dravidian languages. As we know, a compound verb consists of a main verb and a vector verb. It is the main verb that carries the main meaning, and it is the vector verb that gives or that adds a shade of meaning to the whole verb structure. So, for example, in sentence number 14, the children ate, that will be, the verb will be tin is to eat. So, as a neutral sentence, pillalu annam tinnaru. But suppose the children already ate, you want to show the completion of the action, then what do? Then pillalu annamu tiniveseru. And Indian languages have another, by the way, in Hindi you have bachon ne khana kha liya, or that is children have eaten their food, or bachon ne kaam kar diya, the children have completed their work. The next notion that we are interested in is conjunct verbs. What is a conjunct verb? Conjunct verb is a noun plus a verb sequence. That is, you have, for example, in Hindi, koshish karna. Koshish is attempt, karna to do. So, koshish karna becomes one verb, which means to try, to attempt. So, what happens is, let's take look at Telugu first. They married of Radha. They వాళ్ళు రాధకి పెళ్లి చేశారు. An example from Telugu. Then you have పెళ్లి is wedding, చేశారు, chase is the verb to do, పెళ్లి chase is to marry. What happens in Telugu is the direct object or the person who is getting married, it is in the dative case. వాళ్ళు రాధకి పెళ్లి చేశారు. So, what happens in a language like Hindi or Punjabi? उन्होंने राधा की शादी की. So, in Hindi you have a genitive, whereas in Dravidian consistently you have a dative with the person who, with the direct object or indirect object, which depends on the analysis that you make. Then we go to the next point, reduplication. Reduplication is a very robust and strong phenomenon in Indian languages. We know that a noun can be reduplicated, an adjective can be reduplicated, a verb can be reduplicated, a participle can be reduplicated. So, what we are going to do today now is to see whether Dravidian follows this. We are not going to take all the standard examples of noun, adjective, etc. For example, in Dravidian languages you have in the house, some intlo or vidil in Tamil. So, if you put reduplicated form intinta in every house, like it gets the distributive interpretation, just as in Hindi, ghar mein in the house, ghar mein in each house. In many Dravidian languages, the verb plus auxiliary can be reduplicated, and this might impart the meaning of possibility. For example, take the Telugu sentence, Kumar may come here. Kumar ikkadiki vaste vastadu. The verb vach is to come, and vaste is the conditional form, vastadu is the future form. So, Kumar may come here is expressed as it might be the case that Kumar might come. So, what we notice is that vaste vastadu, the verb stem is reduplicated, and the first part of the verb stem carries the conditional marker and the second part carries the auxiliary. Then we can Dravidian languages have another significant feature where the light verb such as do can be used with the verb, and for example in a sentence like, if Kumar comes here or does something like that, it won't be good. But what he is trying to say is, if Kumar comes here, it won't be good. But what I can do is, for the sake of emphasis, I can take the help of the verb, light verb do, that is chey. Kumar ikkadiki vaste, Kumar ikkadiki vachina, chesina bagodu. So vachina, even if he comes, it won't be good. But I am also using the verb chesina. So whether it is vachina, to come, or eat, tinna, I can take any verb for that matter and use the light verb with it, and it is the light verb that is in the concessive form. Then we will talk about compound verbs versus main verbs in interpretation. Compound verbs, as we noticed, for example, carry a shade of meaning. In Dravidian languages and in languages like Kashmiri and Marathi and Konkani, the stem part of the compound verb is in the conjunctive participial form. We know what a conjunctive participle is, and we are going to see what it is in detail later. Another interesting feature about compound verbs in Dravidian languages and in languages such as Bengali, Assamese, etc. is a sentence with a compound verb may get two interpretations, either in terms of one event or in terms of two events. For example, Kumar, he read the letter, then I can simply say it is one event. Then I can say in Telugu, Vadu Uttaramu Chadivi Padi Vesadu. Chadivi is having read, the verb is in the conjunctive, verb stem is in the conjunctive participle form, the main verb, and then the compound verb pad, fall, and vase, another compound verb, the second compound verb carries the auxiliary verb. An interesting feature of Dravidian languages is that you can have two compound verbs in a row. Let's come back to the sentence number 15. Sentence number 15 has two interpretations. In terms of one event, he read off the letter to get rid of the first responsibility of reading. The second one, he read the letter and threw it off. Why? Because pad in this sentence, in the second sentence, is taken in its literal meaning of throwing it off. So that's why the second interpretation has two events. Then we go to reduplication as a syntactic process. Normally reduplication is viewed as a morphological process. But what we are going to see today is that reduplication could yield syntactic results. As we are going to see, Dravidian languages have a verbal reflexive in addition to the nominal device. It's only Malayalam that does not carry a verbal device. So in the verbal reflexive in Dravidian languages is obligatory, the nominal reflexive is optional. However, when the verbal reflexive is not present in the dative subject construction, as we will show later, all dative subject constructions are intransitive and they do not permit a verbal reflexive. Then what we are going to do now is show that when the verbal reflexive is not present in the dative subject construction, it is the reduplicated anaphor that imparts the co-reference. For example, in a sentence like Pavitra took pity on herself, in Telugu and in many Indian languages, this comes under the subject is dative case marked. Pavitraki in Telugu, Tanamida Tanaki Jali Puttindi. Tanamida Tanaki is a reduplicated anaphor and the dative ki occurs with on herself. Here, if there is no verbal reflexive, because as we mentioned just now, the dative subject does not permit a verbal reflexive. So, for the coreference to take place, the bound anaphor has to be reduplicated. If the bound anaphor is not reduplicated, as in sentence number 25, Pavitraki tana meeda jali puttindi. The tana meeda gets, it cannot be coreferential with Pavitra and it gets some other interpretation. Now, let us summarize what we have done in this unit. In this unit, we have discussed several features of Dravidian languages, and we have many of the features that we mentioned. They also work for tribal or non-literary languages. In this unit, we have discussed word order universals in Dravidian languages, and we have provided evidence in support of the notion of India as a linguistic area, which will be continued in the following unit. Thank you very much.